Alright guys, I want to introduce you to the change in projects here in the driveway at Area 55. Now I talked about this in an older video. I talked about trying to bring in some of my other projects and get some little bit of work done and some videos of those to kind of bring a little bit of, you know, something new to the channel, something fresh. Because right now it's just the same old stuff. And I'm kind of stuck on some other stuff with the two-door post 55 that Randy brought me, and I'm kind of stuck on my wife's car. So I thought I would go ahead and bring in the new project here from the backyard, and I'm going to work a couple of weekends on it, because right now I'm just working weekends on my cars because I still have Steve's car here. Now Steve's car is getting closer, but I can't work on my wife's 55 until Steve's car is gone, because I have to pull her car back off the frame and redo that frame. There's also some where I welded pans in the front floorboard. I didn't grind the bottom welds on the bottom of that, so I want to basically pull that stuff off, and I'm not going to do that in my driveway and have it stuck here, you know what I mean? So I'm going to wait until Steve's car is done, and then I'll work on my wife's car, because everybody's going to ask, why are you not working on your wife's 55? That's the reason. Now on the 55 two-door post that Randy brought me, that car, I wanted to try to just get it to run, drive, and move in my yard so I could drive it back and forth. The problem is the 5-speed hydraulic standard transmission that I got, it's missing all the stuff. Like I need a clutch fork, a throw-out bearing, I need all that stick shift stuff. So I don't have any of it. Slave cylinder, I don't have any of that stuff here. So I've got to buy all that stuff, and it's very expensive when you piece it all out. So I decided that I would go ahead and change it up a little bit and bring around Project Super Scraps, which is right here. Now I have a video on my channel from a long time ago showing this car when it was out there in my fenced area, and I've done a little bitty kind of a teaser type clip on one of Steve's videos there a couple of videos back. But anyway, what I had done is, before Randy brought those 55s, I pulled this out of the fenced area and took it to my backyard, and in the backyard I have an 88 SS Monte Carlo that is wrecked down the side, and it's really rusted out. So I used its chassis and put it under this car, because this car is titled and everything, but it had it'd been wrecked in the front, and it had a bent frame, and they also filled the quarter full of filler, and I'd cut it open. I ended up using this car as a parts car in 2017, and anyway, I cut 3 of the floor pans out of it and put in another car, and the spare tire wheel. So now I have to put that stuff back in this car. But I do have other cars that I've cut pans from, and then the 88 in the backyard, the trunk pan and spare tire wheel, remarkably is in nice shape, so I'm going to use those in this car. But once the body shell is all scabbed back together with good parts, this will be a very good project, because as far as bolt-on parts, I gathered all this other stuff from the other cars, and you know, this is all nice bolt-on body panels. Like that door's nice, the fender's nice, the hood's nice. So I just basically need to spend a lot of time on the body shell. Now my idea is to do the floor pans and the spare tire well and maybe this quarter panel, and then at that point I can put some of the 55 two-door parts inside of it in my backyard, and I can actually lock the doors. So it's basically a good storage facility. But right now animals can get up in there because there's holes in the floors. So anyway, that's my main idea, but right now this kind of breaks up the monotony of the channel, and I have something a little fresh coming. Now I am a G-body guy. I've had more G-bodies and built more G-bodies than I have Tri-5s. I know G-bodies very well, probably better than some, and or most probably. You could literally have a 5-gallon bucket of hardware from stripping one of these cars down to nothing, dump it out on the floor, and I could tell you which bolt goes where. That's how well I know these cars. I know the wiring just as well. So nothing about these cars scare me. Like, I'd buy a car that was a gutted shell and put it all back together. But anyway, I gathered a bunch of parts out of my attic, my shed, and I have a spare bedroom in my house full of parts. And I went through it all, and I dug a bunch of stuff out. Now, some of the stuff I've had for a long time, but I got it all out just to kind of where you guys can get a visual in your head of what it might look like. Now these wheels I have, these are 15 by 8 inch. These are Jegs branded wheels. I don't know who makes them for Jegs, but they're a beautiful wheel. I absolutely love them. They're aluminum. They're mainly black, but they have just a little bit of the polished, you know what I mean? Now on the front, I've got 15 by 4s. So it'll have that big and little look. But these wheels at Jegs, I don't remember how much they were. These were dirt cheap. And I like that style of wheel because it's kind of what I have on my hardtop. These are Weld RTS. These are pretty expensive, especially compared to those. But for a budget car, I thought those were great. And I mainly went with a 15 by 4s because the tires are cheap and those wheels were dirt cheap. So these are like 45 or 50 bucks less per wheel than the rears were. But anyway, that's what's going to go on the car, and it's going to be mainly a black wheel, but the car is going to be white. It's going to have a maroon interior, and it's going to have these maroon logos. The big ones are for the doors, and the little ones for the trunk lid. So it'll mainly be white with black wheels, so it'll almost kind of look like a stormtrooper or something in a way. I think it'll look sinister, but again, it's just using stuff that I have around here. Now I've got a brand new pair of Beltec drop spindles that they're actually on a car in my fenced area, and they've been on there since 2017, and it's because I pulled a car in that didn't have any spindles on it, and I took them out of the box and bolted them on there so I could move the car. So they've been sitting out in that fenced area, never used on a driven vehicle. They've just been sitting, and I know they're probably service rusted, but they'll clean up. They're still brand new. They've got bearings and stuff on them, rotors and stuff, so they're sealed from the elements mostly, but you know, it'll have some surface rust on the exterior. I have a brand new full set front and rear of Beltec drop shocks still in the boxes, and I have still in the box a pair of Vibach lowering coils for the rear. So the car will be lowered around 2 inches with these wheels on it, skinnies and, you know, big and littles, basically 4s and 8s, and I think it'll look really nice, man. I think it'll look really good. But I hope these decals are still good, because these have been thumbtacked on my wall since 2017. So I guess I better give you all a little background. So in 2017, I decided that I wanted to build an SS Monte Carlo. I've had a lot of Monte Carlos. I actually met my wife in 1991 driving an 82 Monte Carlo that was lowered with the aluminum N90 SS wheels. But I've had probably, I don't know, maybe about 10 Super Sport Monte Carlos, and only one of those was an Aero Coupe. But anyway, I'm no stranger to SS Monte Carlos. But anyway, I bought one, and I bought a pair in 2017. It was a take 2 and make 1. One had been wrecked in the front. The other one had a good front clip on it, but it had a blown motor. Somebody had vandalized it, broke the windows out. It had aftermarket T-tops in it, and they had leaked, and the floors were junk. So anyway, I decided to go ahead and build the one car, change the front clip out, but when I took the front clip off, I found the frame was bent badly. It was bent so bad that where your front bolts go for your core support, they used a castle nut on top of the frame and then put the cushion, the rubber cushion stuff for the core support. That's how far bad the frame was bent. So when I tore into the car, it just got worse and worse. The quarter was full of filler, the rocker was full of filler from collision damage. It had been wrecked. The car had a rebuilt title anyway. So, and then it had been wrecked. It had been rebuilt, wrecked in the front, rebuilt, and then wrecked it again in the front. So that car was done, man. I did at one point take it off the frame, and I put it on the other car's chassis that was straight, and the bottom of the right front bottom up here at the front where the front body mount goes in was an inch off the top of the frame. So the body was tweaked. So that car's junk. It's still here, and it's cut in a million pieces. So it is hosed. That quarter panel's going on this car. So I ended up finding another car, and then I found another car, and then I found another car. I ended up with 5 SS Monte Carlos. So one of them was an 87 T-top Monte Carlo SS, fully loaded. It had every option. And I went in and started working on it, but the car had rust in the T-roof, which is pretty common on a G-body. It also had rust in 3 of the floor pans, and the bottom of the spare tire wheel was rusty. So I used this car for the parts car for that car for sheet metal. I cut 3 floor pans out of this and the spare tire wheel and put in the other car. I ended up, my wife lost her job shortly after, and we needed the money, so I sold all 5 Monte Carlos to one guy. He come and got the 87 T-top Monte Carlo that I did all that work to. The frame I had cleaned, blasted, painted. The underneath was done and undercoated, I think. I did a lot of work to that car. All the rust repair was done in the T-roof. I mean, it was a nice, on its way project car. Well, he came and got that car and took it and put it in storage and never touched it again. It's still as if the day it left here in 2017. Now, we ended up doing a trade about a year ago or 2 years ago, and I got all 5 of those cars back, but I never have got the 87 T-top car here yet. And I need to go get it with all the parts, because there's a bunch of totes of new and used parts. There's even doubles of stuff, and some of that stuff I'm gonna need for this car. So, you know, I need to get with him and see if we can get together and try to get that thing over here. But anyway, so I decided to build another Monte Carlo out of all the spare parts here, and that's kind of why I'm calling it Super Scraps, because there's a bunch of scrap Monte Carlo parts around here. Now, before I get asked by other Monte Carlo guys if I have any parts for sale, I do not. I don't want to sell any parts until both of those cars are done, because it may end up being a part that I need, and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. Now, obviously, when they're done, yeah, I'll have a lot of parts for sale, but as of now, I'm not selling anything. But anyway, it's kind of funny because I grew up with G-bodies. That was my first several cars, was G-bodies when I was a kid. Very first car was a 79 Buick Regal. Then I ended up with an 81 Regal, an 83 Regal. Then I got an 82 Monte Carlo. So I've had a lot of G-bodies just from the get-go. But I ended up in the 90s and the 2000s, probably all the way up to like 2012, I would imagine, 2010, we'll say. I used to buy a lot of G-bodies, and I used to build G-bodies, but I also used to sell parts. I have had a lot of parts, and the funny thing is, my attic, there is a ton of G-body parts in my attic. I have some rare G-body parts here, man. Lots of stuff. So luckily, I had a lot of stuff in my attic that can work on this car as well. But this will end up being a nice car. I'm just gonna have to do a lot of work to the body, because the body it's rough, man. You know, that quarter from the accident damage, I mean, that filler's so deep. I'm putting a full quarter panel on this car, so this will be fixed properly and fixed nice. The other quarter panel on the car can be fixed. Whoever done the bodywork and paint on this car, or at least the bodywork, they did not pull anything. They just filled it full of filler. So there is a large dent here. It's about the size of a fist. This is all high and this is low, and they had just filled it. So I'm going to grind all this out. I'm going to go in there and hammer and dolly this, because you have perfect access to the back of it with the trunk open. Anyway, I'm going to do some shrinking, and I hopefully can get this back to where it's just damn near perfect, where it just takes a couple of coats of poly primer on it and be done with it. So there's nothing up there. All this quarter up in here is perfect. So anyway, I know I can fix this one, but the other one's going to have a full change, and I have no problem with that. I've put quarters on G-bodies before. It's not a big deal. So I don't really want to open the door with it on the jack. But anyway, I'd cut 3 floor pans out of here and put in the other car, and also the spare tire well. But I have some floor pans cut from the other cars and sitting in here, and then I have one brand new one over there on that side that I have to cut and put in. And I'll, you know, put that all in like factory, butt weld it and grind both sides so it'll look like a nice job. Now the 88 Monte Carlo SS I have here in the backyard for parts, that's what this door come off of, and the hood. Those are very nice parts. But the car was a T-top car. I mean, it still is, but the inside, the rear floors are gone, man. Like, it is super rusty in the floors. Surprisingly, the trunk floor, spare tire well and all is still painted and mint. Like, it's nice. So all that spare tire well section is going to go in this car. All right, so what's going to make this car a little bit on the different side is my engine that I'm using, engine transmission combo. And the reason I'm doing it is because it's stuff that's here. So I have this is out of a 79 Buick Regal Sport Coupe. This is a 3.8 liter V6 Buick turbo engine. So that's kind of what I'm going to use in here, but I'm not using this particular engine. I have another 79 3.8 turbo from a Buick Century that I have here. It's identical, everything's the same. That's the engine I'm going to be using because it's a very nice engine after I tore it apart. Like, the crank's nice, the cylinder walls are nice. So I'm going to do an overhaul on it, you know, polish the crank, re-bearing it, hone the cylinders, re-ring it. But there are some changes that I'm going to be making to improve the performance of the car without going too stupid with it. Now, you've seen the engine combo now, and you've seen the body, so I don't need to hear somebody say, well, I would just go get another car, or I'd just go get an LS, or I'd just do this. That "let's just do this" sounds like money. What I stated was keywords, stuff that's here. So this is what I'm building out of spare parts that are here. So this is going to be Buick V6 powered. Now, this is not a Grand National engine. When I think of a Grand National, even though they had one in '82 that wasn't even turbocharged, I refer to Grand Nationals as like the '86, '87. That's the key ones that I know of. I've had 4 '87 Grand Nationals and 1 '87 Turbo T. I am very well versed in the Grand National Buicks. And 2 of those cars I took off the frame and redid the cars. The very first one I did, I custom painted the frame gloss black, pinstriped it with flames, had the A-arms and the spindles chromed. So I did that in 1995. So the car wasn't even that old when I took it off the frame and did all that. So I am very well versed in G-bodies, and especially Grand Nationals. I know how to get those to run good. I actually had one Grand National that went 1175. So this is not a sequential fuel injected intercooled V6. This is a draw-through carbureted piece of crap. But I have stuff to make it run good, and I'm going to explain that. So the worst part of a 1979, 78 is when it started production, 1978, for the Turbo V6 Buicks. The stuff I have here is 1979, with the exception of having one 1983 complete engine that I've already torn apart, and I am using some of that stuff off of that engine. The cylinder heads on these 79 engines are terrible. Like the very first year, 78, those heads are junk. I actually have a pair of those here, but it is well known, especially on the Turbo Buick forum, the Before Black forum, not to use the 78 heads. They're junk. They flow like crap. These 79 heads, they ain't much better. So then they had another cylinder head, and then they come out with an 83, they came out with the 8445 casting head. That is the best Buick V6 231, or what was it? 4.1. They had a 3.8 and a 4.1 Buick V6, but that's the best cylinder head for those production-wise. So I have a pair of those heads here, and I'm going to use them on this engine, so that'll help it flow quite a bit better than these 1979, whatever casting number these are, cylinder heads. Now, the difference I'm going to do is I'm going to port these cylinder heads, and I have personal experience from porting 2 sets of Buick Grand National heads. And the reason I'm going to port them is because I have first-hand experience of driving a Grand National every day in '87. The car smoked when you started it, and it leaked oil from the front to the back, like it was a self-lubricating chassis option Grand National. I got tired of it. I pulled the engine out, took it all apart. I rebuilt it, basically overhauled it. The cylinder heads I ported, and I port matched the intake. Then I done a lap job and I put valve seals in it, and I was blown away of the power difference I could feel in the seat of the pants driving that car after that. So now, no doubt, when you overhaul an engine and you're giving it compression back that it had at one time, it's going to run better. But this was a little bit more than just a rebuilt engine. It had a lot more power, and it's from those ported cylinder heads. It makes a big difference on a Turbo Buick V6, these old Buick heads like this. So that is one of the upgrades I'm going to do, is port these cylinder heads. Now the other thing I have is a turbo, because the turbos on these cars, they suck. Really suck. They have very bad turbo lag, and I did ride in one of these. A friend of mine had one in high school. He only had it for like a month, and it was a turd, man. It seemed like once you got up going down the highway pretty good, then it would start picking up, but like from a dead stop, it was a dog. They have bad turbo lag, basically. So in 1983, may have been 82, but I have a turbo from a 1983 T-Type Regal, and it has that different size housing, which is better for spooling up quicker. So that's the turbo I'm going to use on this engine. And then the 83 also had an aluminum intake, which is not going to give me any more horsepower. It's just, a little bit better of an intake for it. But that's what I'm going to put on there. And then the downpipe, it's pretty well known that the Turbo Buicks, the downpipes, they always are neck down in places. They're kinked basically. And people will buy aftermarket ones that aren't kinked. So I'm not going to spend the money on buying one aftermarket. I don't even know if you can get one for a 79, up these early cars like this. But I'm going to buy some mandrel bent exhaust pipe, the same diameter as the largest part of the downpipe, the factory one. And I'm going to go in and cut it up and add in, butt weld those mandrel bend pieces to make it a little bit smoother flow and without, you know, all the kinks and all that kind of crap. But I think that'll just be a nice budget, cheap way of going there. Now the other thing that I really don't like about that particular setup is it has a quater jet on it. Now I like quater jets, but I don't like vacuum secondary carburetors set up on a turbocharged application. I don't think that's a good combo. So I have a Holley spread bore double pumper that I'm going to put on there. Now I have a pretty good background in Holley carburetors and making and tuning them, making them work good. So I have no doubt I can fine tune that carburetor to this application and make that thing run really good. And the beauty of having a double pumper is it's a mechanical secondary. So I can richen the crap on that secondary to what I need. I can basically fine tune that to run perfectly. So anyway, I'm excited and I think it's going to be a lot of fun and it should run good, but I'll explain some of the plans here that I have and my reasoning. So what I would like to do after I'm done with all my parts swapping and tuning and all that kind of stuff, I want to take this to the Tulsa drag strip, which I am no stranger to. I've had many passes down that drag strip with many different vehicles that I've had. So I want to try to beat or at least match the quarter-mile time of a bone stock 87 Grand National Buick, which I think Car and Driver's test from 1987, I think, I'm going off memory, I think it was like a 14.7. Now this 1979 engine, I think what it did back then in 1979 for testing, I think it went 1760. So that's a pretty big difference right there to have to make up. However, the stuff that I've got on there will definitely change its attitude quite a bit. And the reason I think I can probably at least match it, it's more likely going to beat the stock quarter-mile time, is Hot Rod Magazine in 1979 took one of those Buick Turbo Centuries, which I have in my field out here. It's actually the engine I'm going to be using is out of that car. It's the same as this one. They took one of those cars in 1979 and they did 3 or 4 issues of magazines, like over consecutive months, and they got that car into the 14s. And some of the guys at the Before Black website, you know, the Hot Air Buick side, some of them guys have got their cars into the 14s and 13s. So it's definitely doable. But if Hot Rod Magazine could do it back in 1979 without changing the cylinder heads and the turbo and the carburetor and all that kind of stuff, I know dang well in 2024 with the stuff that I have and the knowledge I have that I can get this to go faster. So I think it'll be a great car. Now you got to keep in mind, guys, this is outdated technology and these quarter-mile times, this is slow compared to what people are getting nowadays. Nowadays, 1,000 horsepower LSs are the normal. I don't have that kind of pocketbook, but I'm basically taking a bunch of crap that's laying around here and I'm going to turn it into something. And if it runs a $13.99, I'm going to be over the moon, man. I'm going to be happy. That will be a fun, you know, mostly stock and probably very reliable little street car, you know what I mean? So I'm going to enjoy that. And I'm putting the air conditioning on it. I've got every bit of the V6 air conditioning parts to put on it. So the factory air conditioning stuff will all be hooked up and working. But I want to make it look just like an original styled SS Monte Carlo. When you open the hood, it'll be all detailed out and painted and nice. But it's just going to be a turbo V6 with a turbo 400 transmission. So probably the biggest thing to me is going to be the gear ratio, because the Century has 308 gears. This Monte Carlo has 373 posi. That is not really a good combination for a turbo V6 Buick. To have a 3-speed transmission with 373s, this thing would be screaming going down a highway. So this is really more along the lines of just like a little play toy type of thing. I will drive it, you know what I mean, but it's not something I'm going to get on the interstate with and run 75 miles an hour with for 20 miles, you know what I mean? And I may end up putting some gears in it later. I do have a set of 342s here out of a Monte Carlo SS rear end. I think an 85, I think is what that was. 85 SS's had 342 gears, and I think 86, 87, 88 was all 373 cars. But this is an 88 chassis under this car, so it's 373. But thankfully it has the G80 Positrack option in it. So that's pretty awesome. But Anyway, going through all my stuff here, I have a bench seat. It's a split bench factory seat, G-body seat. So I'm going to put a bench seat in it, and it's going to be column shift. It's a tilt, but it'll be column shift. And fun fact, Monte Carlo SS's 83 to 88, the bucket seat console was an option. They had bench seat column shift Monte Carlo SS's, in case you didn't know that. Now here's what I think is really kind of interesting. This is kind of funny. So all Monte Carlo Super Sports 83 to 88 were 305 small block Chevys. They did not make a 350 SS Monte Carlo. If you think they did, then go to MonteCarloSS.com to the forum and try to argue with those guys. It is in the FAQs. There was no 350 small block Monte Carlo SS produced. They were all 305s. Now, this 1979 Turbo Buick V6 has 175 horsepower. The Monte Carlo SS 305 had 180. So this is 5 less horsepower, but the torque numbers are impressive. And I have them wrote down somewhere, but I don't remember where I put those papers. The V6 Turbo Buick, this 79 model, has way more torque than that factory 305. So I think that's pretty interesting that I'm putting in, you know, several years older of an engine combination, and it has about, and it's smaller cubic inch, but it's making right out about the same but more torque, same horsepower but more torque. But that's pretty awesome. But I think this will be a fun build. It's definitely going to be really neat. I think the all white with a maroon interior, the maroon decals, you know, the SS Monte Carlo decals, and then those black wheels, I think it's going to look really nice, man, especially lowered down just a little bit. And when I paint it white, I'll repaint the grille and the headlight surround all back black like it's supposed to. So that'll all look really nice. Now, there was a lot of changes in the Monte Carlo SS platform from 83 to 88. There's a lot of things that they changed. And my absolute favorites, hands down, is the 87, 88. And it's mainly because of the rear bumper cover and the wraparound style taillights, which this is not. This is 83 to 86 here. So they have a little bit nicer, smoother rear bumper cover, and those wraparound taillights, I just love them. But I really, really love that lay-down style second design spoiler that those later cars had. This is called the straight-up style. I only have one lay-down spoiler, so that'll obviously go on the other car that's going to be all original. But anyway, they changed their decal logos. Obviously, this one's from a 1988, which I think is the same as 87, but this is more the 85. Let me see who's freaking calling. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much kind of a rundown on the Monte Carlo SS made from seconds, and I'm going to call it super scraps. It's going to be a big project. I mean, it's going to take a while to build the car, but I can at least get a little metal work done right now. And I do love Monte Carlos, so I actually have interest in the car. It's not something that's just here that I'm going to work on. I do have a passion for the car, so that helps, you know. Hopefully some of you guys are on board, and I realize Tri-5 guys are really not going to be into a Monte Carlo SS, but, you know, it's a little bit of different stuff coming to the channel. And one of these days I need to go out to my shed and dig out the frame and all the other pieces for my 83 Kawasaki GPZ 305 motorcycle project and get some paint on those, because if everything was painted, I could actually build that bike this winter in my house. I've been threatening to do that for like 10 years. Thanks for watching.